Welcome back, amazing people. Comment where you're watching from today as we share a story that will touch your heart and remind you why you should never judge a book by its cover. In the affluent suburbs of Chicago, where perfectly manicured, lawns stretched for miles, and luxury cars lined the driveways, 15-year-old Lucas Mitchell stood outside the Highland Park High School gym, his worn-out basketball shoes clutched tightly against his chest. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the windows, illuminating the freshly polished court where Coach William Anderson was conducting tryouts for the varsity basketball team. The bustling gymnasium echoed with the familiar sound of squeaking, sneakers and bouncing basketballs. 20 hopeful players, all dressed in the latest Nike and Under Armour gear, moved through drills with practiced precision. Lucas watched through the glass doors, his heart pounding with equal parts excitement and anxiety. His faded t-shirt and second-hand shorts stood in stark contrast to the expensive athletic wear sported by his peers. Coach Anderson, known throughout the district for producing championship teams, stood at center court with his clipboard, his stern expression evaluating every move. The coach had built his reputation on not just winning games, but on creating a prestigious program that attracted college scouts from across the country. His players didn't just play basketball, they represented the elite status of Highland Park. As Lucas finally gathered the courage to push through the heavy gym doors, the sound of bouncing balls momentarily ceased. Several players, including team captain James Turner, turned to stare at the newcomer. James, whose father owned half the car dealerships in Chicago's North Shore, barely concealed his smirk as he took in Lucas's appearance. "Can I help you?" Coach Anderson's voice carried across the court, tinged with barely concealed disdain as he observed Lucas's outdated attire. "Yes, sir," Lucas replied, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I'd like to try out for the team." The coach's eyebrows rose as he looked Lucas up and down. "Tryouts were announced 2 weeks ago. We're already in the final selection phase." "I know, sir. I just moved here last week with my mom. We're staying with my aunt until we get back on our feet. I played starting point guard at my old school in Southside Chicago." A few snickers echoed through the gym. James Turner spun a basketball on his finger, his designer shoes gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "Southside? Isn't that where they play on chain nets? When they have nets?" "At all." Coach Anderson held up a hand to silence the laughter, but his expression remained unchanged. "Listen, son, this is Highland Park. We have certain standards here. Our program is highly competitive, and we've already got a full roster of experienced players who understand our system." Lucas stood his ground, though his fingers tightened around his shoes. "Please, sir, just give me a chance to show you what I can do. 5 minutes is all I'm asking." "Look at his shoes," someone whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "They're probably from 3 seasons ago." The coach sighed, checking his expensive watch. "We have a reputation to maintain. Our players represent this school, this community. It's not just about talent, it's about presentation, discipline, and understanding the culture we've built here." Lucas felt his throat tighten, but he refused to back down. Basketball isn't about what you wear or where you come from. It's about heart, skill, and dedication. "I've practiced 6 hours a day, every day for the past 3 years. I've played through Chicago winters on outdoor courts when the wind chill was below zero. I know what it means to be dedicated." James Turner bounced the ball deliberately, its echo filling the sudden silence. "Coach, we can't have someone like him representing Highland Park. What would the other schools think? What would the sponsors say?" Coach Anderson nodded slowly, as if James had just made a valid point. "Son, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this isn't going to work. Our team has an image to maintain. Perhaps you should try the recreational league. At the community center, they're less particular about their requirements." The dismissal stung, but Lucas remained rooted to the spot. "My mom works 2 jobs so I can have a better future." Basketball is my way to college, my way to helper. All I'm asking for is a fair shot. Life isn't always fair, Coach Anderson replied, his tone final. That's a lesson you might as well learn now. Some doors just aren't meant to open for everyone. The USO. Jim had grown completely silent now, the other players watching the exchange with a mixture of embarrassment and cruel amusement. Lucas could feel their stares, their judgments, their assumptions about who he was and what he was worth, based solely on his appearance. Just as Lucas was about to turn away, the gym doors opened again. The sound echoed through the silent space, drawing everyone's attention. A tall figure stood in the doorway, his presence immediately commanding the room. Actually, Coach Anderson, a familiar voice spoke, causing every head to turn. I believe everyone deserves a fair shot. That's what basketball taught me. The basketball in James Turner's hands dropped to the floor, bouncing away forgotten as Michael Jordan stepped into the gymnasium. The NBA legend's eyes were fixed on Lucas, a knowing smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, Jordan continued, walking across the court with the same grace that had made him famous. It reminded me of a young kid from Wilmington who was cut from his high school team. That kid went home, worked harder than everyone else, and came back to prove everyone wrong. Coach Anderson's clipboard nearly slipped from his fingers. Mr. Jordan, we had no idea you were visiting today. Sometimes the best visits are the unexpected ones, Jordan replied, his eyes never leaving Lucas. You know, I've always believed that talent doesn't wear designer labels. It doesn't care about zip codes or bank accounts. Talent is about heart, dedication, and the willingness to prove yourself when everyone else has counted you out. The legendary player walked over to Lucas, picking up a basketball from the rack. What's your name, son? Lucas Mitchell, sir, he replied, standing straighter. Well, Lucas Mitchell, how about you show these folks what Southside basketball looks like? I'll even be your first opponent. The gym erupted in whispers as Michael Jordan removed his jacket, revealing a simple black t-shirt. Coach Anderson sputtered, Mr. Jordan, surely you don't need to... Actually, I do, Jordan cut him off, his competitive smile emerging, because sometimes people need to be reminded that greatness doesn't come from what you wear or where you live. It comes from what's inside. Lucas felt his heart might burst from his chest as he laced up his worn shoes. The same shoes that had drawn snickers moments ago were now about to step onto the court with the greatest basketball player of all time. 1st to 11, Jordan announced, bouncing the ball. Show me what you've got, Lucas. What happened next would become legendary in Highland Park's history. For the next 15 minutes, Lucas Mitchell, the kid in the outdated shoes and faded clothes, went toe-to-toe with Michael Jordan. His crossovers were lightning quick, his jump shot pure, and his defensive stance unwavering. He played with a hunger that no amount of expensive gear could match. When the impromptu game ended, Lucas had scored 9 points to Jordan's 11, earning a respectful nod from the legend himself. The gym was silent again, but this time with awe rather than derision. Coach Jordan said, placing a hand on Lucas's shoulder, I believe you have one more spot on your roster to fill. Unless, of course, you think the 6-time NBA champion has poor judgment in recognizing talent. The coach's face had turned a deep shade of red. No, sir, of course not. Lucas, practice starts tomorrow at 3:30 sharp. James Turner and the other players who had laughed earlier now stood quietly, their expensive shoes suddenly seeming less important. Jordan turned to address them all, his voice carrying the weight of his legendary status. Remember this moment. The next time you're tempted to judge someone by their appearance, the greatest players I've known didn't come from privilege. They came from passion. They didn't have the best gear, they had the biggest hearts. And they didn't make excuses, they made history. As the story of that afternoon spread throughout Chicago's North Shore, it became more than just a tale about basketball. It became a lesson about looking beneath the surface, about the true meaning of opportunity, and about the power of giving everyone a fair chance to prove themselves. What happened next would reshape not just Lucas's life, but the entire culture of Highland Park High School's basketball program. But that's a story for another chapter. Have you ever been underestimated because of your appearance or background? Share your story in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe for more inspiring real-life stories that remind us why we should never judge a book by its cover. Let us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to stay updated on more amazing stories of triumph over adversity. Until next time, remember, talent doesn't wear a price tag, and greatness can come from anywhere. Welcome back to our incredible story. If you're just joining us, make sure to watch Chapter 1 first to see how Lucas Mitchell's journey began. Drop a heart in the comments if you believe in second chances. The morning after Michael Jordan's surprise appearance at Highland Park High School dawned crisp and clear. Lucas Mitchell arrived at school an hour early, his worn basketball shoes, now carrying a different kind of weight. News of yesterday's events had spread like wildfire through social media, and students whispered as he walked through the halls. Benjamin Clark, the school's principal, called an emergency meeting with Coach William Anderson before classes began. The coach's office was filled with championship trophies and photos of past teams, all matching the polished image Highland Park had carefully cultivated over the years. "This isn't just about basketball anymore," Principal Clark said, his fingers drumming nervously on the coach's desk. "Michael Jordan's involvement has put us in the spotlight. We have journalists calling about the story. It's trending on social media." Coach Anderson shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his usual confidence somewhat deflated after yesterday's events. "What do you suggest we do? We can't exactly go back on our word now." "No, we can't," the principal agreed, "but we need to handle this carefully. The board of directors, particularly Henry Phillips, is concerned about how this might affect our school's image." Outside in the gymnasium, Lucas was already on the court, arriving before anyone else. The squeak of his shoes against the polished floor echoed through the empty space as he practiced his shooting routine. Each shot was mechanical, perfect, the result of countless hours of practice on Chicago's unforgiving streets. Oliver Green, the janitor who had arrived early to clean the gym, watched from the sidelines. "You've got something special, kid," he said, pausing his work. "Reminds me of the hunger I used to see in the old neighborhood games." Lucas caught his breath, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Thank you, sir. I can't afford to waste this opportunity. Sometimes the ones who have the least to lose have the most to prove," Oliver replied wisely, before continuing with his duties. As other players began arriving for morning practice, the dynamics were noticeably different. James Turner, yesterday's vocal critic, entered with his usual group of followers, but their typically boisterous entrance was subdued. The weight of Michael Jordan's words still hung in the air. Emma Roberts, the school's student newspaper editor, sat in the bleachers with her camera, documenting what was quickly becoming the biggest story in Highland Park's recent history. "Lucas," she called out, "would you be interested in an interview for the school paper?" Before Lucas could respond, Coach Anderson strode into the gym, his whistle hanging around his neck like a statement of authority. "All right, everyone on the baseline, we're starting with conditioning." The practice that followed was unlike any other in Highland Park's history. Lucas, despite his apparent lack of formal training, displayed a raw talent that couldn't be ignored. His speed on the court was exceptional, his ball-handling skills honed by years of street basketball where every possession mattered. Charlotte Hall, The athletic department coordinator watched from the doorway with growing interest. She had seen countless players come through Highland Park's prestigious program, but there was something different about Lucas, something authentic. During a water break, Alexander Nelson, one of the team's senior players, approached Lucas. "Hey, a man," he said, offering his hand. "That crossover you did earlier, think you could show me how you get that kind of speed?" The gesture wasn't lost on anyone. Alexander was the team's best defensive player, and his request for advice from the new kid represented a shift in the team's dynamics. As practice continued, Coach Anderson found himself increasingly impressed, though he tried not to show it. Lucas's style was different from the polished play he usually demanded, but there was an effectiveness to it that couldn't be denied. The boy played with a hunger that his wealthy players had never needed to develop. During a scrimmage, Lucas was paired against James Turner. The tension was palpable as the two faced off. James, determined to prove himself, played more aggressively than usual, but Lucas remained focused, letting his game speak for itself. In a pivotal moment, Lucas executed a perfect fake that left James off balance, then made a behind-the-back pass to Alexander Nelson for an easy layup. The gym fell silent for a moment before erupting in spontaneous applause. "That's what I'm talking about," called out Sophia Mitchell, Lucas's cousin, who had come to watch practice. She was one of the few familiar faces in his new world, and her support meant everything. As practice wound down, Coach Anderson gathered the team. His expression was serious as he addressed them. "Basketball is about adaptation," he began, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes we need to remember that excellence comes in many forms. Lucas has shown us a different way to approach the game, and there might be something valuable we can learn from that." The coach's words marked a subtle but significant shift in the program's philosophy. It was an acknowledgement that perhaps Highland Park's rigid adherence to tradition had caused them to overlook raw talent and genuine passion. After practice, as players were leaving the gym, Harper Wright, the school counselor, stopped Lucas. "I heard about what happened yesterday," she said warmly. "Just wanted you to know that you're making a difference here, and not just on the basketball court." But not everyone was embracing the change. In the school parking lot, Henry Phillips, the influential board member, was having a heated discussion with Principal Clark. "This isn't what Highland Park represents," Phillips argued. "We have a certain standard to maintain. One heartwarming story about Michael Jordan doesn't change that." Word of the conversation reached Lucas through the school's rapid gossip network. That evening, as he practiced alone on the outdoor court near his aunt's house, the weight of his situation settled on his shoulders. He wasn't just playing for himself anymore. He was playing to prove that talent and determination deserved a chance, regardless of background. Isabella Carter, a girl from his English class, stopped by the court on her way home. "Don't let them get to you," she said, watching him shoot. "Some people are so focused on protecting what they have, they forget how they got it in the first place." Lucas nodded, sinking another basket. The sound of the chain-link net was different from the nylon ones in the school gym, but it was a sound that reminded him of home, of where he came from, and why he couldn't give up. That night, Lucas received an unexpected call. Michael Jordan's assistant had reached out to invite him to a special training session that weekend. The NBA legend hadn't forgotten about him. "Your journey is just beginning," Jordan's message read. "Show them what it means to be hungry for success." As Lucas lay in bed that night, in the small room he shared with his cousin in his aunt's house, he thought about how much had changed in just 2 days. The worn shoes by his bed were no longer a source of shame, but a testament to his journey. The next day would bring new challenges. Henry Phillips had called for a board meeting to discuss the changing culture of Highland Park's athletic program. James Turner's father was rallying other influential parents who were concerned about the precedent being set. But Lucas had something they didn't: the raw, unrelenting hunger of someone who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. As he drifted off to sleep, the words of Oliver Green, the wise janitor, echoed in his mind. Sometimes the ones who have the least to lose have the most to prove. The story of Lucas Mitchell was becoming more than just a tale about a boy who wanted to play basketball. It was evolving into a movement that challenged the very foundations of privilege and opportunity at Highland Park High School. As Chapter 2 of our story closes, we're left wondering, what would the next day bring? How would Lucas handle the mounting pressure? And would Highland Park's prestigious basketball program ever be the same? Drop a comment below, sharing a time when you had to prove yourself against all odds. Don't forget to like and subscribe for Chapter 3, where we'll see how Lucas faces these new challenges and whether the spirit of change can overcome generations of tradition. Remember to ring that notification bell to stay updated on the next chapter of this inspiring journey. Until then, keep pushing forward, no matter what obstacles stand in your way. Welcome back, amazing viewers. If you're just joining us, be sure to watch Chapters 1 and 2 first. Drop a basketball emoji in the comments if you're ready to see how Lucas faces his biggest challenges yet. The morning of the Highland Park School Board meeting arrived with an atmosphere of tension. Dark clouds gathered over the prestigious school as Evelyn Robinson, the board secretary, prepared the conference room for what would become one of the most controversial meetings in the school's history. Lucas Mitchell arrived early for morning practice, as had become his routine, but today was different. Michael Jordan's private training session over the weekend had armed him with new techniques and, more importantly, a strengthened resolve. The NBA legend's words still rang in his ears. They're not just judging your game, they're judging your character. Show them both are unshakable. In the locker room, Noah Phillips, Henry Phillips' son, and a junior varsity player watched Lucas with a mixture of curiosity and conflict. Unlike his father, Noah had seen firsthand how Lucas's presence was transforming the team's dynamic. "My father's wrong about you," Noah said quietly, surprising Lucas, but he's too proud to admit it. The morning practice session was intense. Coach Anderson, feeling the pressure from both sides of the growing controversy, pushed the team harder than ever. Lucas matched every challenge, his new training evident in his improved footwork and court awareness. Even James Turner couldn't deny the change in team chemistry. The usually individualistic players were starting to move as one unit, inspired by Lucas's selfless style of play. During a particularly impressive sequence, Lucas orchestrated a series of passes that involved every player on the floor, culminating in a perfect alley-oop to James himself. "Nice pass," James admitted, the first positive words he'd spoken to Lucas since his arrival, but the real battle wasn't on the court. As practice ended, Liam Baker, the school's vice principal, entered the gym with a grave expression. "Lucas, the board meeting begins in an hour. They've requested your presence." In the boardroom, the atmosphere was tense. Henry Phillips sat at the head of the table, his expression stern as he surveyed the gathered administrators, parents, and student representatives. Among them was Mia Hall, the student body president, who had become one of Lucas's strongest supporters. "This isn't just about basketball," Henry Phillips began, his voice carrying authority. "It's about maintaining the standards that have made Highland Park what it is. Our athletic program has a reputation to uphold." Principal Benjamin Clark shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "With all due respect, Mr. Phillips, the publicity from Michael Jordan's visit has been overwhelmingly positive. Our applications for next year's enrollment have doubled." Publicity isn't everything, countered Elijah Turner, James's father and owner of the largest car dealership chain in the North Shore. We've built this program on certain principles. But then something unexpected happened. James Turner himself asked to address the board. The room fell silent as he stood, his designer, clothes a stark contrast to his humble demeanor. "I was wrong about Lucas," James admitted, his voice steady. "We all were. He's made our team better, not just in how we play, but in how we think about the game, about each other." Olivia Sanchez, the school's diversity coordinator, nodded in agreement. "What we're seeing here is an opportunity for real change, the kind of change that could define Highland Park's legacy." The debate continued, but outside the boardroom, something remarkable was happening. Word had spread about the meeting, and students were gathering in the hallway. Among them was Harper Anderson, Coach Anderson's daughter, who had organized an impromptu demonstration in support of Lucas. Isabella Green, the school's art teacher, had helped students create posters with messages like, "Talent has no zip code," and "Basketball unites us." The crowd grew as more students and faculty joined, their presence impossible to ignore. Inside the boardroom, Henry Phillips was building his case. "Our donors expect certain standards. The corporate sponsorships that fund our facilities," he was interrupted by a commotion outside. The door opened, and Oliver Green, the janitor who had first encouraged Lucas, stepped in. "Excuse the interruption," he said, "but there's something the board needs to see." The board members filed out to find the hallway packed with students, faculty, and even some parents. But what caught everyone's attention was the tall figure standing among them. Michael Jordan had returned. "I heard there was some discussion about standards," Jordan said, his voice carrying natural authority. "Let me tell you about standards. I've played against the best in the world, and I've learned that true excellence doesn't come with a price tag. It comes with heart, dedication, and the courage to break down barriers." Emma Roberts, still documenting everything for the school paper, captured the moment Jordan placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "This young man represents what basketball is really about. Not privilege, not pedigree, but passion and perseverance." The crowd erupted in applause, but Henry Phillips wasn't finished. "Mr. Jordan, while we respect your opinion, you don't understand the complexities of maintaining a program like ours." "Actually," Jordan replied with a knowing smile, "I do, which is why I'm announcing that the Jordan brand will be sponsoring Highland Park's basketball program, with one condition, that it becomes a merit-based program, open to any student willing to work for it." The announcement sent shockwaves through the crowd. Henry Phillips and Elijah Turner exchanged glances, their positions suddenly much weaker. Coach Anderson stepped forward, his decision made. "Lucas Mitchell has shown us that we've been measuring the wrong things. Basketball isn't about what you have. It's about what you're willing to give. He's given us a chance to be better, not just as players, but as people." The coach turned to Lucas. "You've earned more than just a spot on the team. You've earned our respect." As the crowd celebrated, Charlotte Nelson, the school's athletic trainer, approached Lucas with news that would change everything. "You know those moves you showed us last week? College scouts were watching. They're interested, Lucas. Very interested." The board meeting concluded with a unanimous vote to maintain Lucas's position on the team and to review and revise the athletic program's admission policies. But more importantly, it marked a fundamental shift in Highland Park's culture. That evening, as Lucas practiced on the outdoor court near his aunt's house, he was joined by an unexpected group. James Turner pulled up in his expensive car, followed by several other team members. "Mind if we join?" James asked, holding up a basketball. "Figure we could all learn something from some Southside basketball." As the sun set over Highland Park, the sound of basketball and laughter filled the air. Players who had once looked down on Lucas were now learning his street-smart techniques. while he studied their polished plays. It was a perfect blend of two worlds that should have never been separated. Sophia Mitchell watched from the sidelines, recording the moment on her phone. "This is what change looks like," she said to Emma Roberts, who was still documenting the story. "This is how barriers break down." But as Chapter 3 draws to a close, new challenges loom on the horizon. The first game of the season approaches, and with it comes pressure Lucas has never faced before. The eyes of the community, the media, and college scouts will all be watching. Can he prove that his place on the team was earned, not given? Can Highland Park's transformed basketball program become a model for other schools? Drop a comment below, sharing your thoughts on how sports can break down social barriers. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the final chapter of Lucas's inspiring journey. Hit that notification bell to be the first to know when Chapter 4 drops. Remember, as Michael Jordan said, excellence doesn't come with a price tag. It comes from the heart, and that's something money can't buy. Welcome back to the final chapter of our incredible journey. If you're just joining us, make sure to watch the first 3 chapters to see how Lucas Mitchell's story has unfolded. Drop a in the comments if you're ready for the grand finale. The morning of Highland Park's season opener arrived with an electricity in the air that had nothing to do with the gathering storm clouds. The game against rival North Shore Academy wasn't just any game. It was Lucas Mitchell's debut, and the gym was already packed 2 hours before tip-off. William Young, the local sports reporter, set up his equipment courtside. "In my 20 years covering high school basketball," he told his cameraman, "I've never seen this much attention for a season opener." The pressure was immense. College scouts from top programs filled the bleachers, their presence noted by Amelia Scott, Highland Park's college counselor, who had helped arrange their attendance. Among them sat representatives from Duke, North Carolina, and Michigan State. In the locker room, Lucas sat quietly, lacing up his shoes, new ones provided by the Jordan brand sponsorship, but he'd kept his old pair in his locker as a reminder of where he came from. Coach Anderson gathered the team for his pre-game speech, but before he could begin, James Turner stood up. "Coach, if it's all right, I'd like to say something," James said, surprising everyone. "Lucas, when you first came here, I was the worst kind of teammate. I judged you before I knew you, but you showed us all what real basketball is about. Tonight, we're not just playing for Highland Park. We're playing to show everyone that excellence doesn't care about zip codes." The team erupted in applause, and Lucas felt his throat tighten with emotion. Coach Anderson smiled, nodding in approval at the transformation he'd witnessed in his players. In the stands, Lucas's mother sat next to his Aunt Ava Turner, who had taken them in when they had nothing. Beside them was Oliver Green, the janitor who had become one of Lucas's strongest supporters. Michael Jordan himself had sent word that he would try to make it for the second half. The opposing team, North Shore Academy, was led by their star player, Sebastian Baker, whose father had played in the NBA. As the teams warmed up, Sebastian approached Lucas. "Heard a lot about you," Sebastian said, his tone neutral. "They say you're changing the game around here." "Just trying to play my best," Lucas replied, staying focused on his warm-up routine. The game began with an intensity that matched the atmosphere. North Shore Academy came out aggressive, clearly trying to test the new Highland Park lineup. But something was different about this Highland Park team. They moved as one unit, combining Lucas's street-smart creativity with the polished plays they'd perfected over years. In the first quarter, Lucas showed why he deserved his spot. He orchestrated the offense with a mix of traditional plays and innovative moves that left defenders confused. James Turner, now playing off Lucas's style perfectly, scored 12 points in the opening period. But North Shore wouldn't go down easily. Sebastian Baker started heating up in the second quarter, and Highland Park's lead began to shrink. The pressure mounted as the game remained close, and Lucas could feel the eyes of the scouts following his every move. During halftime, with Highland Park up by just 2 points, Ethan Phillips, Henry Phillips' grandson, and the team's freshman equipment manager approached Lucas with tears in his eyes. "My grandfather was wrong about you," Ethan said. "You made me believe I could make the team next year, even though I'm not from a rich family like most of the guys." Lucas hugged the young boy, remembering his own dreams at that age. As the team returned to the court for the second half, they found Michael Jordan had arrived, sitting next to Lucas's mother. The third quarter became the stuff of legend. Lucas and James orchestrated a series of plays that would be talked about for years to come. Their different styles had merged into something entirely new, street ball creativity with professional precision. North Shore struggled to adapt to the unconventional approach, but with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, disaster struck. On a fast break, Lucas collided with Sebastian Baker and went down hard. The gym fell silent as he clutched his ankle. Coach Anderson and the team trainer, Isabella Roberts, rushed to his side. The ankle wasn't broken, but it was badly sprained. Lucas looked at the scoreboard. Highland Park was up by 3 points, but North Shore had momentum. "Coach," Lucas said, through gritted teeth, "I can still play." Coach Anderson looked at Isabella, who shook her head slightly. "Lucas, we can't risk—" "Please," Lucas interrupted. "This is more than just a game now. This is about proving that everyone deserves a chance." The coach looked into Lucas's eyes and saw the same determination that had changed his whole perspective on basketball. He helped Lucas to his feet. "Your choice, son, but remember, you've already proven yourself." Lucas limped back onto the court to thunderous applause. Michael Jordan stood up, nodding in approval at the young player's heart. What happened in the final 2 minutes would be remembered as one of the greatest finishes in Highland Park history. Playing on one good ankle, Lucas couldn't drive to the basket, so he adapted. He became a pure facilitator, setting up his teammates with brilliant passes that showcased the true meaning of team basketball. With 10 seconds left and Highland Park up by 1, North Shore had one final possession. Sebastian Baker drove to the basket, but there was Lucas playing perfect position defense despite his injury. Sebastian had to pass, and James Turner made the interception. The buzzer sounded. Highland Park had won 76-75. As the crowd stormed the court, Lucas found himself lifted onto his teammates' shoulders. James Turner was hugging him, all their past conflicts forgotten. Coach Anderson had tears in his eyes, and even Henry Phillips, watching from the stands, stood to applaud. Michael Jordan made his way through the crowd to Lucas. "That's what basketball is all about," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Heart, determination, and the willingness to prove yourself when everyone else has counted you out." In the locker room afterward, surrounded by his celebrating teammates, Lucas received news that would change his life. 3 college scouts had already expressed interest in offering him scholarships, but the bigger victory wasn't about basketball. It was about what Lucas had helped create at Highland Park. The walls between different worlds had started to crumble. The team was already talking about holding clinics in Southside Chicago, about breaking down more barriers. 1 month later, Highland Park's basketball program had been completely transformed. Applications were flooding in from all over Chicago, with talented players from every background hoping for a chance. The Jordan brand sponsorship had enabled the school to create a scholarship program, ensuring that talent would never again be turned away because of financial constraints. James Turner and his father had become the program's biggest advocates for change, using their influence to encourage other wealthy schools to follow Highland Park's example. The story had gone national, inspiring similar transformations across the country. Lucas's mother was able to quit her second job, as the school had offered her a position in their newly created community outreach program. She worked alongside Oliver Green, helping to bridge the gap between different communities through sports. On a quiet evening, as Lucas practiced on that same outdoor court where his journey had begun, he reflected on how much had changed. James Turner pulled up in his car, now a regular occurrence. "Ready to work on that crossover?" James asked, grabbing a ball. "Always," Lucas replied, smiling at his former adversary turned close friend. As they played under the setting sun, their different backgrounds no longer mattered. They were just two players who loved the game, proving that basketball, like life, is at its best when everyone gets a fair shot. The story of Lucas Mitchell became more than just a tale of basketball triumph. It became a testament to the power of breaking down barriers, of judging people by their character rather than their circumstances, and of the amazing things that can happen when someone gets a chance to prove themselves. As our story comes to a close, we're reminded that sometimes the biggest victories happen off the court, and the most important games we play are the ones that change people's hearts. Drop a comment below, sharing how this story has inspired you to break down barriers in your own life. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring real-life stories that remind us why we should never judge a book by its cover. Remember, as Lucas proved, it's not about where you come from. It's about where you're willing to go and what you're willing to give to get there. This is more than a game. This is life. And in life, just like in basketball, everyone deserves a fair shot.